Hi everyone, I really appreciate you coming out, taking a look at this. We're going to be talking about erectile dysfunction. We're going to be talking about some of the cures, some of the causes, some of the things that you can do at a very low cost in order to change your current outcome. And just to give you a kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing, we're primarily going to be talking about men's health. And with that, we're going to be talking about the erectile dysfunction, where what is your diagnosis? Do you have a diagnosis? What can you do as a individual that has erectile dysfunction to start overcoming it and start making positive headway towards a cure? So we're going to be talking about what those cures are, and I believe that I have approximately 19 different cures. Now, understand that a lot of these cures have not been approved by Western medicine. They are more holistic. They are methods that deal with your mindset, your lifestyle, and it works. There are miracle cures. I'll talk about my miracle cure. I'll also talk just a little bit about the erectile dysfunction that I had. So, we're also going to be talking about your finances. How do finances come into play? But more importantly, how much money should you be spending on erectile dysfunction cures? And again, erectile dysfunction cures is a misnomer, because when a individual such as yourself goes to a physician, they will typically tell you that there is no cure for erectile dysfunction. They can cure the symptoms. We're also going to be talking about why autoimmune diseases typically show up in individuals after 50 years of age. Well, when did your erectile dysfunction start? Was it at 40? Was it at 30? Or did it happen more in the later years of your life? And we're also going to be talking a little bit about why are we seeing more erectile dysfunction in younger men, men who are in their 40s, in their 30s. And we're also going to be talking about stress and what stress does to your body. What does cortisol do to your erections, do to your body, do to your hair? A lot of different things are controlled by that, including your autoimmune system. Now, we're also going to be talking a little bit about the uh, short-term fixes and real life transformations, a holistic approach, and I'm not sure why my backup is beeping at me. It should not be beeping, so we will continue on. All right, so let's kind of jump into just the diagnosis part of erectile dysfunction. Typically, what happens is that you have an event. The event does not go well. You're embarrassed, you are shocked, you are dismayed, you do a couple of workarounds, and if you get frustrated or angry, then it really turns to crud. So we need a decent diagnosis. What is that diagnosis? There happens to be 7 different questions that the physicians ask, and it typically revolves around how many times did it happen, when does it happen, and what are some of the circumstances, mentally, stress, that type of thing, that would cause an erectile dysfunction. And the answer to those types of questions precipitate a giving you something that's going to placate or mask the symptoms, and that's the different erectile dysfunction drugs. So, in the diagnosis, let's break it down. If you happen to have had an injury to the groin that crushed the blood vessels, if you have a disease state, if you're taking medications that prevent good blood flow, like they're vasoconstrictors, then what will happen is that you're going to have a high chance of erectile dysfunction. One of the things that I found rather interesting, and I'm going to mention it a couple more times, and that is that at a certain age, men decide that they want to get old. Well, it's common knowledge that erectile dysfunction is a old man's disease, and it's really a symptom, it's not a disease. And so when we talk about the diagnosis of erectile dysfunction, do you or do you not enjoy your partner, the person that you're having sex with? If you don't, if you've had a disagreement, you've had some tension, then the chances of you being able to get a very hard erection go down dramatically. Understand that there are the mental components and there are the physical components. We started out with the physical, but let's talk just a little bit about the mental. How many times in your life have you been so stressed that sex wasn't even a part or even in the communication of your life? It wasn't going to happen because you were just too stressed out. How many times did you have an argument with the person that is your partner in sex? Well, that's going to diminish your sex drive. The fact that an erection is such a complicated thing is amazing to me, that we can actually have erections. And we, as men, reflect back to a time when these erections would pop up at any one moment and they were distracting. So going back to the mental part of erectile dysfunction, that is probably one of the easiest to cures. There are societal pressures, there are religious pressures that tie into the social, and if you happen to come from a religion that is either Catholicism, Judaism, any one of the Christian beliefs, you're going to believe that having sex and masturbating is not appropriate. The church frowns on it. Well, that right there is the pressure that causes later erectile dysfunction. And that's not something that we need. We need to understand that what the religions say is simply based on a couple or some individual that wrote it down, and then an interpretation of that. And those interpretations drive us as men nuts. So our psychological erectile dysfunction can be cured by cognitive, behavioral therapy, hypnotism. It can be cured by Reiki healing and yoga, Kundalini yoga. It can also be cured by just being more aware and having biofeedback. While on the other side, when we talk about the erectile dysfunction due to physical effects, we need to get our lifestyle, our food, our diets in shape. Are you aware that when a large fast food organization comes into a third world nation, that the amount of diabetes and the cholesterol and heart disease before that fast food arrives in that nation is very low? But once fast food comes into that nation and people start consuming it, the heart rate, heart disease, coronary goes up, your reduction in blood flow to the genitals goes down, and you have a higher case of diabetes. So if you happen to be into fast food because it's convenient, it's killing your sex life. Think about this, that the foods that you eat that keep you healthy are the foods that are going to allow you to have a very strong erection. It's not about immediately cutting off and not eating chocolate or not drinking coffee, or it is very slow. It's a methodical process. The thought patterns that got you to erectile dysfunction are not going to get you back to be able to have strong erections. What's going to happen is you're going to have a new mindset. One that says that you care about your health, that being sick is not kind of like a vacation, which is kind of weird, but there are men that when they get sick, it's finally time for them, where they get recognized, where they get cared for. These are all very important in the disease state. I have friends. I have one friend that is overweight. I've known him for probably close to 40 years, and he used to be very active. He was the primary breadwinner for the family, and he had a heart attack in his 60s. Well, once he had the heart attack, he continued to work and then retired, and once he retired, he wants to keep his mind very sharp, but he doesn't care about his body. He sits day in and day out. Now, we're going to be talking about the physical exercise. Why is physical exercise so important? It's not about going out and doing 10,000 steps, even though that's a great start. It's going out and just moving. We, through 300 years of evolution, 300,000 years of evolution, we have been designed that we need to move in order to keep our bowels moving. We need to burn calories. Whatever muscle tone that you have will be lost if you don't use it. There's a common saying in the medical practice that says if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And a perfect example is my friend that I was just describing a moment ago, is that he happens to not move around. He's lost muscle mass. He is losing calcium in his bones, and it's common knowledge that without tonality on your muscles, you will lose bone density. And when you lose bone density, what's going to happen is that you're going to become more frail. Well, my friend doesn't move. If he would move, he would be able to breathe. If he moved, he would have better digestion. If he moved, he would have better bone density. My point here is that I'm not asking you to go out and go to a marathon. If you have trouble doing physical exercise, my suggestion is walk around the house, walk around the block, get involved in your neighborhood, go places. If you need mental stimulation, you can get that by reading and interacting with other human beings. One of the things that I feel is very, very important is that there are 4 definite things that we as humans need to do in order to create longevity. And the first thing is sleep. If you're having trouble sleeping, you're probably having other disease states. What's that all about? Well, typically, I have no problem going to sleep. As a matter of fact, the person that I love and really care about, she's pissed that I could fall asleep in less than 15 minutes. She's pissed that I could sleep all night long. She's pissed because she's the one waking up worrying. She's creating her own stress. My point here is that if you get good, solid sleep, the chances that you're going to live longer are tremendous. It's the number one thing that causes disease states. Why do you think that when people are being trained, they use sleep deprivation for it? Sleep deprivation causes your mind not to function correctly because you don't know times, places, and it is a tool where interrogators get information from you. So let's reverse and go to a positive state where you do get lots of sleep. Well, what do I do to get sleep? I do body scans. What that is that I start with my toes and I work my way up through my body, and I tell every part of my body to go to sleep. If that doesn't work, then what I do is I send energy to the places in my body in which I want to heal, make better, function at a higher rate. And that typically will put me to sleep. If that doesn't work, then what I do is I focus on sending healing energy to other people. If that doesn't work, what I do is I have a pen and paper that's right beside the bed, because typically you're laying in bed and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep because I need to remember this. Well, guess what? You don't. What you do is you write it down. And at the end of the night, no matter how many times it comes up, the minute that it comes up, you write it down immediately. And then you lay back down and you start to drift away and you think about it again. Well, write it down again. And you don't need to turn on the light to disturb anybody that else is in the room. What you need to do is just write it down. Now, when you wake up in the morning, if your handwriting's like mine, it'll be illegible. And that's fine, because you're just going to throw it away. All of those thoughts, all that worry was for nothing. If there was anything that was really important on that sheet of paper, yeah, you can read it. And if it's legible, yeah, write it down. It'll make you feel better. This sleeping is the number one thing. The next is relationships. We as men don't typically get involved in a lot of relationships. I can count on this hand how many relationships that I have that are deep and meaningful with male counterparts. Now, a lot of the time I don't talk to them, but once a month I do talk to them on a regular basis, just to check in. Do we talk about politics? Only if we make a decision to talk about politics. Do we talk about family? Do we talk about friends? Do we talk about what we're doing? Yes, it's a casual conversation where there's no judgment, no control, no toxicity. The key behind great relationships is being respected, being admired, and being present. Having conversations and relationships are very easy. You have to be present. If you're thinking about work, you're thinking about grandkids, you're thinking about your finances, guess what? You're not being present. Now, I will have, and I've been told that I'm rather a intense individual. And that's because my eyes. Well, guess that the reason for this is my personality and some of the trauma that I have had early in my life. I'll talk about my first miracle cure. I happen to have been somewhere in the age between 1 and 2, and I had a disease called nephritis. Now, I was isolated because at the time, nobody knew whether or not nephritis would, if you caught another disease, whether or not that disease would kill you or the nephritis. For those of you that don't know what nephritis is, it happens to be a renal kidney disease. It is where the fluids are not passing correctly through the kidneys in order to be disposed of and voided out of the body. So, as a 2-year-old, 1.5, whatever, I did not have emotional intelligence. I didn't have the ability to communicate very well. I didn't have the ability to talk to people and discuss what the emotions were, what my feelings were. I didn't, all I knew is I was locked up and isolated like a bubble child. Now, I watched The Bubble Child, and let me tell you, that was a hard movie for me to watch. So what would happen is they'd slide the food underneath the door. Yeah, there was a gap underneath the door, and that's how they contacted me. They'd stand on the other side of the door and talk to me. Do you know what it's like not to be touched? There have been studies that show that part of a person's personality, part of their growth, is that they have to be touched. Those that aren't touched develop in a completely different way. My point here is that one day, one of the neighborhood kids came by, and this particular neighborhood kid didn't really follow rules real well. And at the point where I wasn't following the rules very well either. I was hungry for social contact, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And so what happened is that he happened to have chicken pox. Well, in that day and time, they didn't have a lot of vaccines. So what happened is that I got chicken pox. Immediately, I went into the hospital, and the physician that was taking care of me basically told my parents that if the chicken pox doesn't kill him, the kidney disease will. And what happened was that the chicken pox cured the nephritis. It was a miracle. What happened is that my immune state went up in such a fashion that it wasn't attacking my body, it was attacking an outside source. It raised my body temperature in a fever, which is a virus, and what happened was that the nephritis got reset. Where I'm going with this is that your sleep helps reset your body. Relationships add flavor to your body. And flavor in a sense that it makes life more interesting, it's helpful, it is healthy to have these relationships. All right, now, the next thing that, you can see me now, so I got cured from the nephritis and it was a miracle. But my point is that we need to allow the body to cure itself. And Reiki healing can do that, Kabbalah can do that, yoga can do that, relaxation. We need to be doing all of that. So going back to the top four things, the first was the sleep, the second was relationships, the next one is food and diet. How many times have you eaten something and can't go to sleep because you have indigestion? Or you had a little bit of caffeine or nicotine or something that caused you to stay up. I mean, I use caffeine in order to stay up. I know when my caffeine level needs to be, and I know when I stop drinking caffeine, because if I do it any time after that, I'll be awake for quite a while. My point here is that you don't need to change your dietary habits in a flashpoint. You don't need to change all five and your diet and throw away everything. No, you need to start with the simple things that make you happy. Changes that aren't really going to be jarring to you. And then what happens is that you get on that and it's a slippery slope and you start going and really doing your dietary in the proper way. Think about it. Reducing your salt intake. How do you do that? Well, you get rid of processed foods. Yeah. You start shopping at the outside perimeter of the grocery store. That's the highest density of nutrition on the outside of the grocery store. It has less processed food, especially ultra processed foods. Now, don't misunderstand me. I like some good processed food. There are a number of products that I really like. However, I'm not eating them every week, 5 days a week, 5 times a day. Why? Because I know that the sodium level and the content of those ingredients can cause different diseases and different responses, and doesn't make me feel good. So I cook healthy food from scratch. Not all the time, but I do have healthy home-cooked meals. I don't eat out very often. When I do, I typically select the items that have the lowest sodium and the highest quality of food and flavor. So the point that I want you to get from the changing your diet is very simple. I want you to eat healthier. Fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, green vegetables, roots. One of the books that I just recently finished, it talked about high density nutrition. And that typically comes from your root vegetables. Now, I don't cook a lot of root vegetables. I want to be healthy. I'm going to learn how to cook root vegetables. Why? Because root vegetables will help my diet and help me last a long time and be healthy during that whole period of time. All right, now here's the fourth thing in that group that's going to cause you to have a longer life, and that is exercise. Notice it's number 4. That means that you don't need much. You remember my friend that I talked about, that all he had to do was get up and walk around? He currently only gets up to go to the bathroom, and he eats right where he sits all day long. My point is that if you make the decision to exercise, you can go find a hobby. You can do something other than sit. Just standing. One of the techniques that I do in order to reduce my stress is that if I'm doing something very stressful, having stressful conversations, I will stand up and I will start to move. And the reason why is that standing movement is what we, through our evolution, used to do. We used to walk everywhere. Now we don't. We drive around. We sit. We are sedentary. That's not what we want. So if you want to have a happier, healthier life, just nibble a little bit on any one of those 4 that I just gave you. So let's move on. Let's talk about those finances. I want to talk about 2 separate things. The first thing is that we are going to have to spend money in order to live, in order to entertain ourselves, provide housing, shelter, safety, security. The other thing that we need to talk about is how much money do we spend on our health? Do we try different radical type therapies? Do we go with the conservative? Do we even research it? I think that AI is an absolutely incredible tool now, that you can do a lot of different research and be able to get the right kind of answers that are customized for you and get your own diagnostic, which I think is great. So when we talk about finances, the first thing is do you have lower back pain? Yeah, lower back pain. That means that you worry about finances. Now, that's a holistic belief. But the amazing thing about that holistic belief is it's true. I used to have back pain. I used to have tremendous back pain, lower back pain, where when I was writing out bills, I was angry. When I was writing out bills, I was frustrated that I was spending more money outgoing than what was incoming. So I had to change that. I used to be, when I would do bills, I used to come out so angry afterwards that I would lash out at the people I loved. Now, you remember, I had to have relationships. That's the number 2 thing that keeps you alive. If you're yelling at the people that love you and you are supposed to love them, there's some dysfunctionality with that. You might want to change it. So I had to go through a mindset change, a lifestyle change, where I bought a stamp. Yeah, I spent a whole $1.25 on a thank you stamp. And every check that I wrote, I hit thank you. Now, that was a mind shift. The reason why is I signed up for every one of those bills. I demanded that they provide me services because I paid them. My point here is this. It's the little things that you do that are going to change your life forever and get rid of your disease state. As a holistic healer, I believe that your mind can do amazing things that can heal you. Your mind and body working together as a team will allow you to stop immunosuppression and allow your body to do its job. One of the things that I've noticed in the Western medicine is that the first thing they go to is immune suppressants. They're trying to shut down the immune cycles. Now, I find that not a good idea, and the reason why is that after a period of time, that immune suppression, your body just doesn't know. It's heard it before and it's trying, but it's not working, and your body gets frustrated, and then it goes rogue. And that's when it starts to attack your body. And that's not a good place to be. If we would work towards reducing the cortisol, reducing your stress, then we are able to keep up with your body taking care of itself. Your body is an amazing thing. When we talk about cholesterol, cholesterol has gotten a bad rap, and the reason that cholesterol has gotten a bad rap is simply that too much of it, you get arterial sclerosis, a building up and a narrowing of the vascular system. Reality is that your body's saying, oh, we got a problem over here, we need to lay some pipe. Oh, we got a problem over here, we need to lay some pipe. And then after a period of time, your body doesn't know the difference between laying pipe on pipe that isn't needed to be laid, or we have a real problem. My point is your autoimmune system starts to attack itself. Why? Because you got too much cortisol going on in your body. Oh, I want to show you something real quick. See this bald spot right here? Yeah, I came from a family that had bald. Bald. Everybody was bald. And they told me I was going to be bald. And guess what? I have a small patch. And the reason why is I got my cortisol under control. Not because of my mom's genes or somebody else's, because they had baldness in their family. My point here is that if we reduce our stress, then we are going to feel better and not have to take cholesterol, high blood pressure, hypertension. What we need to do is the meditation. We need to relax. It is fine that we go into a stressful situation. It is not fine to have this stressful situation over a long period of time. Yes, you're not as stressed when you go to bed, but if you're not sleeping, you're still stressed. How many times when you were sleeping and rolling around in bed did you feel, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get to sleep? And my point is, you need your sleep because that reduces the cortisol in your body and reduces the stress hormones. And there's a couple of others that go along with that. So I want you to feel good about your health. I want you to set your health as a number one. Are you having fun right now with the choices in the lifestyle that you've got, being unhealthy and having to circulate around medical and medicine, getting your medicine, when certain institutions decide that that medicine is no longer available in your healthcare program, so now you're going to have to pay for it out of pocket? Yeah, very distressing, very stressful. So I don't think I finished the financial part of this because I went into the stress, but I do want to talk just a little bit more about how much money you're paying for your health care. In my case and my family's case, I'm willing to pay quite a bit out of my own pocket to be healthy because I personally believe that prevention is the number one cure. If I'm able to prevent heart disease, then I won't ever have to have the medical bill for a heart transplant or a heart attack. How do I do that? I'm eating right. I'm reducing my stress. I am consciously monitoring and giving biofeedback to myself as to, am I stressed? I happen to have this thing called tinnitus. It's ringing in the ears. I'm able to use that as a tool to monitor my blood pressure. If my blood pressure starts to go up, then the ringing will get louder and louder. If I start to give biofeedback, I meditate, I breathe, I get in line with my vagus nerve, I hum, I chant, then that reduces my stress, my high blood pressure, and I'm able to move forward. Understand that the only medication that I take are vitamins and minerals. I do not take high blood pressure. I do not take cholesterol, and the reason why is that I am very conscious of wanting to be healthy. It is a number one factor in my life. And through the Reiki healing that I do, not only for myself, but for others, it makes dramatic changes in their lives. Reiki healing is a method whereby there is electromagnetic pulses that come from my hands into the patient's body. It is a channel of energy. Now, some of you are like, well, that's kind of hocus pocus, but reality is that they have shown that the electromagnetic resonance, MRI, has shown to decrease some types of cancer. Now, you don't want to be taking a lot of the MRIs. You don't want to go in once a week in order to do that because it's a very strong type of electromagnet. But my point is that using energy to heal, and that can be through prayer, it can be through meditation, it can be hands-on, it works. I am a firm believer of it. And I am not a firm believer on going to the last result for erectile dysfunction. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, when we talk about autoimmune diseases showing up more prevalently after 50 years of age, why does that happen? You know, if you look at the bell curve, it starts right there at the age 50. What happens? Well, a lot of people happen to get the mindset, I'm old. In my head, I'm not old. The reason why is I want to live a long time. I am active. I want to be active. And with that, my lifestyle changes compared to some of the people that I associate with. So when we have autoimmune diseases, that is a buildup of all that stress that has happened. And it looks like, you know, you got about 30, probably 40 years of intense stress before your body says, nah, we're done, and starts to attack itself because it doesn't know the difference between a healthy body itself and a foreign body. It just doesn't know. So it starts attacking itself. When I want you to think about the amount of stress that you have in your life. Do you treat other people fairly? Are you humble? Do you say thank you? If you are an individual that thinks that everybody is below you, that you judge everyone, then you've got a lot of stress. If you happen to have to make life and death decisions, that's a lot of stress. I had a business and a career where nobody died, but there was a lot of stress because it had to do with money. And going back to the money thing, men feel and get their identity from money. I stressed about money. I told you that about paying bills, but I'm still concerned that I will outlive my money. Now, I have different investments that are going to take care of that, but the unforeseen, the fear of the unknown, still concerns me somewhat. So when we talk about having erectile dysfunction in men that are getting younger, autoimmune diseases that start at 50, it's due to the stress and the lifestyle. If you are able to get rid of the stress, then your life will go much better. There was a study that was done with stress that a individual that was a starting position versus a one that was in management. Management is much more stressful than a starting position. We'll all agree on that. The difference is that the manager felt that they had more control. When you feel you have control, it's less stressful. We have a lot of fears. Fears create stress. So what we want to do is figure out how we can get better circulation, better hormones going through our body, Well, that's talking to each one of those organs through Reiki healing, through hypnotism, through the shockwave therapy, acoustic therapy. We all have the ability to be cured. So let me just jump in real quick and start talking about the cures for erectile dysfunction. There's biofeedback. Biofeedback is where you listen to your body. It can be, you can be hooked up to a machine that gives it. In my case, I told you about my ears. I'm able to adjust my lifestyle and my thoughts on my body talking to me, and that's biofeedback. If you need help, there's plenty of stuff that you can get online. I'm not saying go out and buy it. What I'm telling you to do is get in touch with your body. If your hip hurts, it's typically your shoes. I've had a situation where I was doing a lot of walking and I used to have back pain. Not lower back pain, but back pain, just straight up and down, just shooting. And then I had sciatica, and then I had a couple other things. And my point is that I talked to a friend, relationships, and he said, you need a new pair of shoes. And I said, well, these shoes are only, and I couldn't remember. I went out and bought a pair of shoes, solved the problem. Biofeedback. If you're in pain, it's your body telling you something isn't quite right. Using reflexology will help that. I do reflexology, and I have a number of patients that complain about their tension that's up in here, and they have spasms, and they just can't get rid of it, and it's a nagging, aching. Well, there are certain pressure points on the back of your head that once you release those, that pain goes away. Now, you can go to the doctor, and the doctor will give you lots of pain meds. That will hide that. He won't do reflexology on you. He will give you pain medicine because it is quite well understood that in Western medicine, what they are doing is listening and medication management. They're not going into your past history. They didn't know when I was growing up, or even the last physician that I went to earlier this year, that I had been traumatized by being in isolation and not having human contact. That never came up in any of the conversations. My point here is that when you work with me, I'm going to ask those questions because those are the trigger points that cause a disease state. It doesn't allow for the energy in your body and the flow of blood and the flow of neurosynapses. It doesn't allow your vagus nerve to be its fullest. Do you realize that with your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that runs from right here all the way down into your groin, that nerve can feel the presence of other people, the moods. It is just an amazing thing. My point is that it helps you manage your health and become healthier. We talked about earlier cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is basically reframing a event that causes you a tremendous amount of stress, hurt, pain. I've had lots of people that I talk to that say forgiveness. I don't want to forgive them because I don't want to repeat it. Well, reality is that the person that you forgive is yourself, not them. They don't care. If you go over to them and ask them about it, they're going to tell you, nah, that doesn't bother me. I don't even remember. My point here is that when we actually forgive somebody, we're forgiving ourselves and releasing energy that is toxic, that is controlling. So cognitive behavioral therapy gets you to that point. The next one is exercise. We talked about that. The more exercise you do, the better the blood flow. Now, I've got individuals in my life that go to the gym. I see them at the gym all the time, and they've got type 1 diabetes. Well, that's because they worked all their life under a stressful situation, and the diabetes is an autoimmune because it just stopped working and functioning. My point here is that it is reversible. You need to make some dramatic changes, but it's reversible. Hypnotherapy, I've talked about that. That's reframing. That's the forgiveness. That is smoking cessation. That is overeating cessation. It really helps. Kabbalah healing, that's what I do. It is a certain branch of Reiki healing, and it is the laying on of hands. And if you don't want to be touched, that's fine. It is a channeling of energy through your body to specific areas. There's also reflexology, and we also have Kegels. Kegels will increase the blood flow to the groin area. Now, I happen to have gone to a urologist in the past year, and he said Kegels don't do anything. I'm afraid they do. They keep you from leaking into your pants. They tighten up that area so that you have better bowel movements. It works. Then we also have laser therapies. I have a buddy that uses lasers on his knees because there's nothing there, and it helps rebuild some of the tissue that has been degraded over the years. Massage therapy. Massage therapy is a wonderful thing because it gets the blood flowing. It also is along the lines of reflexology, of hitting trigger points in your body and releasing that energy so the blood can flow. It's very exciting. The next one is meditation, how to get rid of your stress. Meditate. Now, some of you watching are probably thinking to yourself, well, I don't know how to meditate. Meditation's pretty easy. You can meditate on your breath. In, out, in, out. It's boring. That's why it works. It relaxes you because the only thing you're focusing on is in and out. Focusing on a word, focusing on a letter, focusing on the meaning of the word, focusing on your happiness, focusing on different parts of your body. Meditation works, and it's been working for thousands of years. Then we happen to have chiropractic or osteopathic medicine, and what that is an adjustment in your bones, and some people call it bone cracking. Well, I happen to go to a chiropractor because I had a type of scoliosis. What I needed was new shoes, new hips, but I didn't get a new hip. What I did was get the new shoes, get adjusted so that my spine didn't curve in an improper way and compress my intestines, my circulatory system, and my nerves. How many times have your posture slumped over, your shoulders brought forward versus standing erect? It's all due to our habits and our lifestyle. We didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of this. Nobody ever trained me. I had to go out and seek and find it. And I'm glad that you're watching this because now you're getting this information. I've talked about reflexology, and that's using trigger points in order to release energy and cause better circulation, decrease the amount of pain, and it really does work. It works on all kinds of things in your body. It's amazing. We've talked about Reiki healing. That is what I do. And Reiki healing works. I've had some great success with erectile dysfunction. I've had some good success with diabetes. I've had good success with other ailments, back pain, foot pain, you name it, we get rid of it. We've talked about the right kind of diet and the right types of foods. It's simple, not overnight. You don't need to stop eating fast food. You just need to cut down from 20 times a week down to 1 time a week and use it as a reward for other things that you're doing if you really like it. We also want to talk about shock therapy, and we're talking about shock wave therapy. And what that is it's a sonic wave or an electronic wave, and you can have electrodes hooked up and that's through a specialist or the home health care. You can get a shock wave tool and use that, and it creates warmth, increases the blood flow, it massages the area to get blood in and allow for your immune system to take over to make any kind of repairs, and Then we also have sonic or acoustic therapy. And that's when they, like when you're doing a sonogram to find a baby, you can use that very same sonogram in order to start stimulating the muscles, stimulating the nerves, and also the blood flow. The last two that I mentioned, the shockwave therapy and the acoustic therapy, I do think works if you have a long-term illness. I'm not sure that it's going to make much of a difference, but it's definitely a place to start. One of the things that is very important is your mindset. We've talked a little bit about that before, and you have to believe that what you're paying for is going to work. Now, some of you are saying, well, that's the placebo effect. You're absolutely right. But there is research that says that if you tell a person that it is a placebo and it still works, what's that all about? Well, the research that I've done is it's the care. It's being confirmed. It's somebody taking the time in that relationship to demonstrate that they care for you, that you are going to be safe, you're going to be secure, you're going to enjoy happiness, you're going to be able to still achieve some of the goals that you wanted, your life dreams. My point here is that there are plenty of very rich individuals that have had disease states. They went and got the latest and greatest in the art of medicine and trials. They eventually died. With your mindset, relationships, sleep, you're going to be able to have a miracle cure. It can happen, but you've got to believe in the fact that the system is going to work. Be it Reiki healing, be it the acoustic therapy, be it exercise, cognitive therapy. If you jump into it, what's going to happen is that it's going to jumpstart your body. If you are just going to dip your toe into it and then say, oh no, it doesn't work, guess what? It won't work. Your mind is just an amazing thing. Whatever you believe, you are 100% correct. All the time. What I believe may be different than you, but I'm still correct too. My point here is that your life is managed by the thoughts and belief systems that you have. So you can go to stem cell therapy. That's a radical, very expensive method, but it does cure because it helps with the circulation, the autoimmune, and rebuilding the tissue. So I've covered an awful lot, and I want you all to feel better about your health and managing your health, understanding what is important to you. Where is health in the priority of your life? Think about what the priorities are and the values of your life. And with that, you're going to then start to move towards a healthier place. When we get rid of toxic people, toxic work, toxic food, toxic belief systems, what happens is we start moving forward to a happier, healthier place. When we are talking about the overall well-being of individuals, we need to understand where they are in their health process. What is your past? What are the traumas in your life that are causing your belief systems to be? And what will happen is that you can then start a good quality therapy. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I had erectile dysfunction, and I had erectile dysfunction. It was caused by the medication and drugs that I was taking. I, in my early career, happened to have a very unhealthy lifestyle. Everything was convenient. If it wasn't convenient, I didn't eat it. And that meant that I was eating a lot of foods that weren't very healthy. And what happened is that during my escapades. I had a default where I couldn't get an erection, and I worked it out with the partner at the time, and it was an event that I forgot. Was I concerned about that event reoccurring? I was. When I was doing and using certain medications, I was concerned as to whether or not that event would happen again. That fear in the back of my mind needed to be alleviated. And also, I happen to value my genitals and feel that when they don't function correctly, it really causes me to go into depression and a fear state. So I started doing research about my health. What was I doing that contributed to the events of erectile dysfunction? I was on the road to taking high blood pressure, cholesterol, you name it, I was going to be taking it. What made the change? The change was simple. I started changing my lifestyle, one thing at a time. Got rid of whole milk. I didn't even think I'd be able to do that. Went down to 2%. Oh my gosh, the first couple of times I tried it, oh, it was horrific. Reality is I don't drink milk anymore. I eat a lot of dairy, but I don't drink milk. And these small increments help me get off of the medication so that I am a happier, healthier individual without side effects. It's up to you. You're the person that's driving the bus on your health. I understand that you don't know anything about finances, and I get that. You weren't trained. I understand that you're concerned about what actually a lifestyle actually means. I get that. You need an education. You need to experience. You need to start talking and developing relationships with individuals that have that knowledge so that you can be empowered to have a much healthier life. Some of you that's been watching this probably say, oh, this is too much. It's not real. Well, how about this? Comment. Let me hear what your thoughts are. I'm able to discuss with you pretty much cures, causes, you name it. I've been doing this for a number of years. I have accidentally got into Reiki healing back in my 20s when I was working with an individual that happened to have an accident where there was a large perfusion of blood. And the perfusion of blood would cause them to die if they didn't get it under control. Well, the techniques that I used and the healing that I used, I didn't know I was using them at the time. And that individual, we got them taken care of. They survived. They needed a huge transplant, but nonetheless, that worked. And it was in a medical environment that all that happened. So my point is that your ability to get from where you're at to where you want to go is up to you. Go ahead, make the call. Reach out to me in the comments on Facebook, and let's have a discussion. I do no charge consultations. I do a bioscan. Bioscans are very simple. I start at your head, and I can do this long distance. I concentrate, and I enter your energy field and go down through your body and ascertain where your energy is being blocked, where you have problems, that may be medical, or they may be mental or emotional. My point is that I can do this long distance, and then we can discuss a therapy that's for you, low cost, something that will work in order for you to be able to get better, have stronger erections, and a happier and healthier lifestyle. So again, reach out to me on Facebook or go to the website, Mach 1 Coaching. I'll be glad to talk to you there. Or you can go to Cured Erectile Dysfunction, and I'll be glad to communicate with you there. I want to thank you for coming. I really appreciate everything that you've done. I want you to know that it's in your hands from here on out, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.